Story 1. In 1977, I started dating my sweetheart, and we are still together and married. I would love to relive some of those moments with her. Story 2. In 1994, I was a difficult son to my father who was dying of cancer. I didn't spend enough time with him. He passed away in the summer of 1995. I wish I had that year back to spend more time with him and make it meaningful. Story 3. Honestly, I am content with life. However, if I could, I would do some things differently while raising my child from 2009 to 2012. Story 4. In 2024, my significant other passed away. I truly believe that if I had urged him more to seek medical help, he might still be alive. Story 5. In 2018, I told my fiancé to stay home and not go to work. He died in a car accident, and I still miss him. Story 6. In 1984, I would stop my mother from meeting my adult father, as she was a teenager when they met and married. It was a wholly toxic situation. Story 7. It was the first year my wife and I dated, and we could redo some things there. On a deeper level, it was the year my son was born. He passed away in 2020 at the age of 9, so I would love to hold him as a newborn one last time. Story 8. In 2014, I had a good job with great people, traveled a lot, and made more money in 12 months than I had before or have since. I would like to relive that experience. The years 2015 to 2021 were challenging. Story 9. 1994 was my favorite year. I was 9 years old, playing Super Nintendo and listening to Tupac. Not much has changed, but the world felt better back then. Story 10. In 2008, I could short the market and buy on the way down. This would also give me 7 years to prevent a certain decline down a specific path that has led us to where we are now. Story 11. 2009 was the best year of my life. I cut ties with what I considered my best friend for years. My fiancé and son would still be alive today, or at least not taken from this world by a sociopathic narcissist. I do not even care about cryptocurrency. I just want them back. Story 12. 1964 was the year my mother was pregnant with me. In her second trimester, she contracted German measles, which caused me to be born deaf. I wish she had not caught it or had at least not been pregnant with me, although my parents did what they thought was best. I feel that because they were fed misinformation and were unaware of certain facts, I was deprived of a better start. Story 13. Do we, as a society, maintain a collective memory of the interim years? Honestly, knowing what we know now, I would love to go back to 2016 and have America choose Bernie. Now that we know he is alive, he is in amazing health, and he is still fighting for us. Can you imagine how much better the COVID-19 response would have been with him in the White House? But now that I have a child, I can't really participate in these discussions because it would mean losing him. Story 14. If I'm freezing it forever, I'll go for 1999. The world seemed very hopeful. My girlfriend hadn't developed cancer, and we had our youth. The music was better too. Story 15. Early 1984. My family was still together. It was a stable time in my life. I planned to learn basic programming on the Commodore 64 my stepdad was about to bring home, apply myself, avoid being the class clown in high school, and focus on computer science and information technology as a career, rather than wasting years in temporary jobs and contract work as the overqualified guy, eventually becoming a project manager as I am now. I would still attend the same university in the same year and hopefully secure the same dorm room, but I certainly aim to meet some of the same people I met the first time around and avoid a couple of the mistakes I made back then. Who knows, I might even end up investing in certain companies and making a bit of money. Story 16. Honestly, either last year or 2019 was one of the best years of my life. I met and started dating my girlfriend last year, and until certain political events began occurring, it was a fantastic year. The other great year was probably 2019. I spent most of it deployed at sea, which was one of the most enjoyable experiences of my life outside of being out on the water. Despite everything, it was one of the simplest and most fun years I have experienced. Story 17. The year 2000, primarily in the months before the election, marked a pivotal moment. The older I get, the more I am convinced that the 2000 presidential election was where everything started going wrong. What happened in Florida with the ballots likely cost Al Gore the election. Had he been president, I don't think the country would be where it is now. That probably wouldn't prevent the events of September 11th. I am uncertain how that could have been prevented. However, if I could go back in time, that election is the one thing I would choose to change. Story 18. 1993 was the year I graduated high school and went to college. I would like to make some decisions differently. Story 19. In 1979, I began dating the man I later married. I was only 16 at the time. If I could go back, I would have put the brakes on that decision, remained single longer, and pursued a college education. Story 20. 2016 was a difficult year in my life, and many things were out of my control. These issues affected me in 2017, and if I could go back, I would change how I reacted. I felt depressed and lost during that time. Story 21. Honestly, I do not really want to relive any part of my life, even though I had some memorable times. Story 22. In 536 AD, medieval scholar Michael McCormick noted it as one of the worst years in history. Story 23. In 1999, the internet was still in its infancy, but the promise of its potential was on the horizon. Most people were aware of it and had used it, but many had not, which kept the novelty factor alive. Films such as The Matrix, Fight Club, American Beauty, Toy Story 2, The Green Mile, The Sixth Sense, Being John Malkovich, and Office Space were all released that year. The economy was booming. Almost everyone was making money and feeling happy, looking forward to the new millennium. I was 25 and working in information technology, where companies were offering significant financial incentives for year 2000 compliance. It was a great time to be alive. Story 24. 1984. McDonald's was amazing. The music from 1984 and onward was fantastic. The Commodore 64 was incredible. The 1984 Trans Am was impressive. Did I mention that McDonald's in 1984 was amazing? Story 25. 2008, right when I started high school. Going back to a time without responsibilities and being able to see friends every day would be amazing. I didn't realize we were in the glory days while they were happening, and I missed those times so much. Story 26. In 2017, life was good. I had a decent job and entered a relationship halfway through the year. I was saving money for a home or an apartment. A choice I made in December of that year changed everything for me. It was one of those pivotal moments in life, and I made the completely wrong decision. I would give anything for a chance to start over. Story 27. Maybe I have never wished for the tiger month of my ex and the date of the year she was born, because then I would have definitely stayed with the other curly-haired girl with freckles. Those are the only freckles I've fallen for, especially when the other didn't have any in my view. Never have they ever. Story 28. In 2006, I was halfway through upper secondary school, and things beyond my control were starting to go downhill. I would do everything to save myself and change the course of my life. Story 29. Would everything play out the same? I wouldn't want to relive this life, as interesting as it may be. Story 30. Honestly, I'm really unsure. My first thought was 2008 because I met someone then that I should have rejected. However, this experience has helped me grow a lot. So I'm not sure. Additionally, I guess maybe 2004. I could tell my mom not to start drinking. Maybe things would be different today. Maybe not. I could even add 1985 in there, the year my family entered a cult before I was born. There is so much I wish I could erase, but it is what it is. Story 31. I would go back to 2015 and fix many mistakes I made starting from that time, as long as it didn't affect the future too much. Story 32. In 2021, I made some poor financial decisions during the COVID-19 pandemic, and I can't seem to escape the consequences. I wish I could tell my younger self that things would get better and to avoid panicking and making rash decisions. Story 33. Nothing before 2003. My youngest daughter was born in 2003, and I wouldn't risk her being born as her current self for anything. In 2004, there was still a lot of undeveloped, inexpensive property near the big city to the north. I am investing heavily. I am also warning anyone who will listen about adjustable rate mortgages and other non-traditional ways of financing homes they cannot afford. Story 34. 2019 was a controversial year, pre-COVID. However, it was a real opportunistic year for me. Sometimes, I wish I could go back and take advantage of those opportunities. I also wonder what lockdown would have been like under different circumstances. Story 35. If I retain my memories of everything up until now, probably from 1993 when I was 3 years old, I would live my life over with full knowledge of everything I need to know while taking care of my body, heart, and soul. I would find a way to disengage from my abusive home sooner, work out more, and be more independent. I would live more fully. Story 36. In 2017, I was in high school and we were buying Bitcoin at the time. I had over $200 from my Wendy's job, but ended up selling it a few months later because I was bored and wanted to spend money. Poor younger me didn't know enough about stocks, Bitcoin, investments, and so on. Story 37. Realistic, 2023, just so I could dance with my high school crush again. Far-fetched. 1914. I've got 3 ships and an archduke to save. Story 38. April 1993. I was 23 and had an amazing girl named Liz. But I was an idiot and wanted to play the field. I dumped her and was with someone else just 2 days later. 6 weeks later, I realized I had made a huge mistake. I got Liz back, but our relationship never recovered, and a year later, she ended it. Currently, I am on a train, and as I write this, I decided to play my music on shuffle. Story 39. In 2017, after I turned 23, I experienced my first year of stability and normalcy. I had a very difficult childhood, struggled with depression during my college years, and faced challenges in my first year after graduation. By 2017, I was starting to get my life together and even landed my first full-time job. That year provided me with 3 valuable years of experience and knowledge, which helped me prepare for the COVID-19 pandemic. I realized I could have made better career decisions, such as getting involved in VTubing early and capitalizing on the Twitch boom in 2020. It's hard to think of any other year I would want to return to. I could go back as far as 2006, as I have many regrets from my teenage years that I wish I could change. But that's about it. Story 40. In 2003, I started high school, and my parents split up in early 2004. It would be interesting to see how things might be different if I went in knowing what I know now. It would also allow me to see what might have happened in my life if I had gone to college instead of joining the military after high school. Story 41. All things considered, I would reset time all the way back to the Big Bang. We have made mistakes in this universe. It's time for a do-over. Story 42. In the summer of 2005, I wanted to stop my dad from dying. I had the choice of taking him with me to get something done on my car, but I told him I didn't want him to be late for work. On his way to work, someone ran a stop sign and crashed into his truck, killing him. I wish I could go back to that year and that day. Story 43. The Big Bang. Things are difficult. Perhaps we should start from scratch. Maybe the asteroid will miss this time and we can already be post-scarcity, spacefaring lizard people by now. Story 44. Probably 1998. The government was stable, the economy was booming, and the most serious issues we had to complain about were the glitches in Windows 98. Story 45. In the summer of 2013, I want to redo college and avoid all the mistakes I made during that time, such as playing too many video games and not studying enough. Story 46. In January 2011, Bitcoin was worth $1 or less. I had $1,000 to spend at that time. In fact, I could have spent up to $2,000. Story 47. On October 21, 2014, I told my mom not to use the washroom. She slipped and apparently suffered a brain hemorrhage and died on the spot. Story 48. In 2020, it would be challenging for everyone else, but I would choose to stay home, avoid that job, and be more responsible with my finances starting then. Story 49. 1987 was the year I met my first girlfriend. We were high school sweethearts. I was 16 and she was 15. We dated for over 5 years. We broke up more than 30 years ago, but I still dream about her sometimes. Story 50. Any year would be beneficial. Can you imagine how wealthy you would be if you had perfect foresight about what you currently know? For me, it would probably be 2011. I would advise myself to avoid a certain food item that led to my health deteriorating. Story 51. In the year 1,000,000, humankind is enslaved by giraffes. Man must pay for all his misdeeds when the treetops are stripped of their leaves. Story 52. In 2020, life was perfect. For those short 12 months, everything was going right for me. More importantly, I would have had the chance to get my mother to see a doctor and catch her cancer sooner. Maybe that way she would be healthy now. Story 53. 1994. The music was great. I was still a kid without worries. My parents, aunts, and uncles were alive. Story 54. If I retained my current knowledge and no one else did, I would mine Bitcoin extensively and hold on to it. If I retained my current knowledge and everyone else did too, perhaps in the 1800s, we could avoid damaging the world with pollution and other issues this time. If no one retains any knowledge and it's just a random reset to 0 AD, we would have a clean slate to start over and hope for better results. Story 55. Does it sound crude and wrong that I would like to live as a spectator to some of the saddest and most significant events the world has seen in the last century? I must admit I am 26 years old, so I have not really lived as much as others have. Story 56. 2005 was the year I started kindergarten. I would love to do some things differently in life, pursue hobbies that are truly worth pursuing, and become proficient in them throughout my life. I would much rather know how to draw instead of playing video games. I understand it's never too late to learn, but it can be embarrassing to draw at the level of a 10-year-old. Story 57. In 1997, I would have started preparing for military service rather than trying to prepare for college. I could have explored different career options while serving my country and avoided accumulating a significant amount of debt. Story 58. In 1997, I made a few poor decisions that I still regret. A reset gives me a chance to change my past if the memory is retained. Story 59. As a parent, I wouldn't want to go back to a time before my children were born. They are my greatest treasure and my life. Story 60. In 2009, I had multiple offers for Division I baseball, including a full scholarship to a decent university. I didn't think it was the right fit for me and chose a Big 12 school instead of a Mountain West school. The Mountain West school guaranteed me a starting spot and promised not to alter my swing. On the first day at the Big 12 school, the coach changed my swing, and I still performed well. I secured a starting position, but due to the changes made to my swing, I fractured my back, essentially ending my hitting career. Fast forward, I became a pitcher at a Division II school. While it was still fun, my love for the game diminished. One benefit of this journey is that I met my wife, and I love her very much. If I had chosen the other path, I likely would have become a professional player, as another friend of mine, who was good but not exceptional, got drafted from there. Story 61. In 2022, I had just bought a house with the person I should be spending my life with. Fellas, don't ruin a good thing. Story 62. Early February 2020. Yes, I knew the pandemic would happen. I wanted to go back and see my aunt. I had asked her if she needed any help around the house, which she declined, and then she passed away from an aortic aneurysm 3 days later. She had been experiencing back and chest pain, as I later learned. I wish I had at least seen her, if not convinced her to go to the hospital. The entire family fell apart afterwards and has never been whole since. Story 63. In 2022, I made a mistake moving back to the south side of my city while drunk, and now she stalks me and dates the people who live above or below me, claiming she doesn't like me. This is still happening today, March 13th, 2025. To me, this is stalking, but the police do not see it that way, even though she threatens my life repeatedly. I have witnesses to her threats, but the police will not do their jobs. Story 64. 1969 was the year I met my wife. If I had the foresight, our lives would be different. Not necessarily better, but different. Story 65. Well, sorry to part so quickly. I need to finish digitizing some materials. I never thought the other person would have been so bold with their ego to upload their subpar event on the internet for everyone to see. I mean, obviously, I recognized the girl. Her face and distinctive voice were clear to me right away. For that bold move, that partner of hers is a champion in my book. Thanks, friend. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.